What's up? Welcome back to Beat Goblin. If you're watching this on the day it comes out, Happy New Year's Eve. This is going to be a hopefully one take Jake, pretty rambly video, hence second channel, so bear with me. I want to take a quick look back at 2022 and look forward to 2023, celebrate the wins, and talk through what I've learned as a result, and just kind of like overall what happened. So let me set the stage for you. 2022 was basically the race against burnout the year. I had a lot going on. I work full-time as a civil engineer with absolutely no intentions of slowing down on that. I had an important professional exam that I kind of needed to take this year. That is an 8-hour-long test that basically covers everything I learned in all of my engineering classes and says, okay, now regurgitate all of that onto a piece of paper in 8 hours. I had to study for that and take it, which I did and passed first freaking try, baby. We'll get into that a little bit. Plus running the YouTube channel, plus starting this channel, Beat Goblin, the second channel, plus trying to do a little bit of traveling and maintain some semblance of a social life. So that was a lot to deal with, and in addition to all that, I have found my energy levels and the stability of my energy levels at an all-time low. I still don't know 100% why, but I have found some ways to make that better, which I also will get into. But this was me basically trying to juggle too many balls, and I don't know how to juggle. So let's start with YouTube. Over time, over the course of the second half of the year, have been executing a slow, subtle pivot. And I need to go back a little bit to give it some context. When I first started here on YouTube, I would do a song and then a song walkthrough. I grew up watching movie and music behind the scenes all the freaking time, and I'm just the kind of person to telling people about the things I'm interested. Hey, check this thing out. Isn't that cool and interesting? Even if I know that you don't necessarily natively care about that thing. And so that format of a song walkthrough came really naturally. And so as I got into hardware, I would dust that off and use it occasionally, but it almost felt like too low effort, for lack of a better word. And so I would always set my sights on what it takes to be a proper gear YouTuber, where you do the full scripted in-depth review, and that's your main content, and then you maybe have a little filler content in between. But as I did more of that, I discovered that takes a lot of time. Who would have thunk it? And has kind of a lot of pressure riding on it. That video has to do well, and you have to be have something interesting to say about that piece of gear, and maybe some interesting insight, and you have to have an opinion about it, and you kind of have to have all your ducks in a row. And that became increasingly difficult for me as I got deeper and deeper into it. And I realized that I will forever be in the shadow of people who do that format but already do it better than me. So this all came to a head with the Dirty Wave Mate review, where I got made a really embarrassing factual error. And it forced me to take a step back and go, is this review format working for me? Is it leaning into my strengths? And I came away with the answer being, not really. So over time, I've been executing a slow pivot back to the walkthrough format with one important change. I give them a central focus and a hook and a theme. So it's no longer, here's how I made this song, and it's no longer, here's my God-given opinion on a piece of gear. It is now, here is a big picture observation about a piece of gear delivered through a track walkthrough. I have done a few videos like this. Some of them have actually done really well, and people seem to like them and respond well to them, which is great. And it differentiates me from other people. It's oh, I go to Gabe because I get this thing that I can only get from Gabe. This format, this kind of video. And so a good example is the Cyberpunk Syntact video. That was originally meant to be a review. I had that idea sitting around for ages and just wasn't able to fully get a review to come together. I even had the whole Cyberpunk cosplay thrown together as my Halloween costume, and I was going to use it for that video. That all was ready to go. I just didn't have a review. And so I went, well, what if I turn this into a track walkthrough? And lo and friggin' behold, it was way more fun for me to make. It leaned into my strengths way better, and people seemed to like it. So expect a lot more of that, as well as a return of tutorials. I realized that I hadn't done many like proper tutorials in ages, and that's pretty stupid of me for a few reasons. First of all, accessibility, like as a concept, is really important to me. In my full-time job of civil engineering, I deal with a lot of transportation and infrastructure stuff. So there's big picture transportation stuff like getting people from A to B, and then there's like grading a site or doing public works jobs that involve dealing with things like curb ramps and sidewalks and walkways and general areas that are governed by ADA, Americans with Disabilities Act. And over time, you learn how to make a bit of public infrastructure or infrastructure within a housing development, say, truly accessible. And I'm really passionate about doing that. The fact that my work creates a piece of infrastructure that people use day in, day out, and that helps people like get to where they need to be, even if they have a disability, that's really cool. That makes my job very fulfilling to me. And then in the YouTube space, I always had the thought of like, I should make the videos I wish I had. But now I've crystallized that even further to, I want to make music production accessible, both in the way that it seems and the way that it is, if that makes sense. That's part of the reason that the sample packs I sell are $5, by the way. That's part of it. And then part of it is just because like I like that it's like an easy impulse purchase for people to make, but like it's a bit of both. But tutorials, that's a way to make music production more accessible. I should also note, that's the other reason I felt uncomfortable with reviews, is because reviews often put gear so front and center and make it seem so essential and make the expensive gear seem so important. And that makes music production and even music production hardware feel more inaccessible if you, say, don't have the disposable income to engage with what's a pretty expensive hobby at times. But I want to encourage people to get into music production, even if they don't have a lot of money, to just use what they have and like learn as much as they possibly can. Once again, tutorials are a way to do that. Get people up to speed, get people over the learning curve of potentially complicated gadgets. That will make music production hardware more accessible. And then I might try to do some more kind of like, free plugins or other general concepts that hopefully can get more people into music production, make it less intimidating, make it less difficult, and hopefully make it feel less expensive. All that to say, that's where the main channel is headed. I want to do more stuff that's more educational and stuff that is more leaning into what I'm already good at and what I already actually enjoy doing more. There will still be the occasional review. I'm not letting that go away, but it will probably be an ebb and flow. I'm expecting there to be a bit of a hit in views, but I have made my peace with that. I need to make YouTube more sustainable for me long term, because I do want to keep doing this, but like I kind of refuse to slow down in any other aspect of my life. And like there's already real life stuff that I have just cut out. Like I don't watch movies. I just don't. Part of that is like I just kind of got bored with movies as a concept, and like I've played a lot of video games socially. I pretty much never play video games solo. But like I'm already having to be like a little bit of an insane person to get this whole YouTube thing to fit into my life. And so why not take more steps to make YouTube right-sized in my life? I think the thing that really forced me to like start thinking about this stuff and move in that direction was studying for the PE 8-hour exam. So quick bit of context. When you're getting your professional certification, you have 4 exams you have to take. The first one I took a few years ago. That's the FE exam, Fundamentals of Engineering, gets you your EIT certification, which is Engineer in Training. And then you have the PE 8-hour, and that's the big hairy one that I was really dreading because it's just incredibly overwhelming to study for. And so I spent a lot of time studying for that one, especially over weekends. And like I said, passed it my first try. I was like emotionally numb after it because it's an 8-hour test. And then I have 2 more I have to take after I like apply, go through this whole application process. It's a whole thing. But those are hopefully going to be a lot less overwhelming to study for, and they won't take as long. So I got that out of the way. That was a huge win for me this year. And that being the like extra thing in my life forced me to like think very carefully about how I wanted to proceed with YouTube. And also because I've struggled with my energy levels this year. I've often felt a little more low energy than normal. There are a myriad of reasons for that, potentially, that maybe I don't even know about. But one thing I can point to is migraines. If you don't know, I don't know if I've actually ever mentioned this like publicly. I've had chronic migraines all my life. It used to be a lot worse. Like when I was a kid, I would get them like once a week where I'd be like, have to lay in a dark room and do nothing, like that bad. These days, that doesn't happen too often. Once every 6 months or so, I'll get like a weapons grade one that'll like lay me out, and like that can even lead to like vomiting and stuff. Like it can get really bad. And like I know my triggers, or I should say have been getting to know my triggers. So things like strobe lights are like obvious ones, including like flickery fluorescent lights are basically strobes to me. Those can be triggers for like low grade background hum migraines that just like hang on and drag me down. Not eating, getting overheated. If say I went on a hike on a hot day for like went too hard or something, there's a bunch of that kind of stuff that like I have to be careful with and conscious of. And so that's having like a low grade background migraine can drag down my energy level. And I realized an important cause of it that I want to share with you because like maybe like one or two of you might find this helpful. For more context, I am 5'6". I'm a small man. And I've often said I'm a small man living in a tall man's world because it just seems like most stuff isn't built for people my height. Whether that's actually true, I don't know, but that's how it feels to me often. And so I would often find myself getting neck pain at work, sitting in a chair for 8 hours a day, like in the same position. And no matter how much I followed like ergonomics advice, I like would still end up with my head just kind of like by the end of the day, no matter what I did, until I got a standing desk apparatus is what I've been calling it. It's a thing that like goes on top of your desk that you can raise up, your monitors and like keyboard go on top of it. And, you know, it turns your desk into a standing desk. That has been an absolute freaking game changer for me. Because now I can sidestep the whole sitting thing altogether. I can have my monitor at a proper height. I can basically let my back be at a comfortable position, have my elbows at 90-degree angles, and like standing, especially for me, is like much more energizing than sitting, just in general. Like I would often go for like lunchtime walks to try to like wake myself up. But then once I've been sitting for a while, you just like feel sapped of energy. So like now I stand much more than I sit at work. And the difference in my energy level, stability throughout the day, and my remaining energy at the end of the day is immense. It was an absolute game changer for me. And like literally my YouTube format pivot and the standing desk thing have been the biggest game changers for me in making YouTube more doable and my work like less like exhausting. That made a huge difference. Another thing that did make a bit of a difference, but also added more stress at the same time, is the rollout of this channel, or like the formal relaunching of this channel. I've had like this as a little second channel, as like a dumping ground for random videos for a while, but I officially like gave it the Beat Goblin branding and like relaunched it and started posting regular content on it this year. And it's been an interesting experiment because I noticed that there were like a bunch of video ideas and a bunch of like creative stuff that I was just like leaving on the table because I felt like I would be sabotaging myself if I like put it on the main channel. This is where this stuff goes. And that has been a tremendously rewarding creative outlet. But also, I have to pay out of pocket if I want to have Ian edit. He edits most of my main channel videos and takes a percentage of my AdSense. Whereas for this channel, I pay completely out of my own pocket based on how long the videos take to edit. For context, Ian and I have known each other since we were kids, and we've collaborated on creative stuff since we were kids. And so like we have kind of a bit of a unique setup for like our creative work going. And like I constantly check in with him to make sure like what I'm paying him is fair. But having him edit Beat Goblin videos, I take a loss on that right now. Like Beat Goblin is not like I couldn't do it forever monetarily unless I edit all of the stuff myself. So like I do edit a lot of Beat Goblin stuff myself, unless it's a more complicated video, then I'm happy to pay Ian to do it. So that's a source of stress, and that like I don't know when Beat Goblin just becomes like a thing I can't afford to do, either in terms of time or in terms of like the money that the main channel brings in, which is basically subsidizing Beat Goblin. But it's been a really fun creative outlet. I've like indulged in video ideas that like I know I'm pretty much the only one who cares about, and if anyone else watches it, that's awesome, but I made this for me. So I've put like music on here, I've put weird experiments on here, like I made music out of ghost hunting equipment, or got back into making bass music finally, like, you know, your dubsteps of the world. I had been like leaving that stuff alone because I know synth heads aren't always into that kind of thing, and so expect to see a lot more Beat Goblin stuff, a lot more beat making experiments. The distinction between the two channels will remain blurred, and sometimes whether something is a Gabe Miller music video or a Beat Goblin video will be purely based on feel from me, but hopefully the content on both of these channels is entertaining, and hopefully they're both places to go to make music production feel more exciting and more accessible. Speaking of songs, by the way, this was another thing that I put a lot more like time and thought into, is more kind of proper singles-worthy songs. Often I will get bored of ideas very quickly, and so my music production and video pipeline is kind of tailored to match, where I will go from idea to finished product as quickly as possible so I can like get it out of my head and then potentially move on to the next thing. Ideas in my brain have like a bit of a shelf life. Like if I sit on an idea for too long, I get bored of it. And then potentially if I sit on it even longer, if it's a really good idea, I come back to it. And I had a few songs involving vocals that have been like percolating in my brain, some of them for years. Like the song that I put out, While It Lasts, I basically wrote most of it right before the pandemic hit, like before I knew there was going to be a pandemic. And like the song is like being terrified of the future, but enjoying like a cool moment while it lasts. And that turned out to be rather prescient. I finally went ahead and like spent a bunch of extra time really fine tuning and kind of masterminding what are hugely glorified pop songs. And I'm incredibly proud of how they turned out. I like paid vocalists, and having a vocalist who is good sing my song ideas with, like, I'm not much of a lyricist, but with the lyrics that I've written, is the coolest freaking thing in the world. So there's the two like electronic pop songs, While It Lasts and The Neon City. And those are like very melodic. They have all these little production bits and details in them that I spent a bunch of time on. I basically thought a lot more like a traditional record producer, where you like mastermind a song and like get into all the details. That's how I thought about those songs. And then on the other end of the spectrum, there's the metal stuff, which was also really fun to like dig into a lot further. So that would be Forgotten Future and Dystopia Rebranded, which once again, I hadn't done a whole lot of like metal that I considered to be all that good. Those songs I am immensely proud of, and they've got vocals. They represent my taste in music pretty well. And the second one of those, I actually played real guitar on. I'm not much of a guitarist, but I bought a guitar secondhand from a friend of mine. So that was a really fun experience, and that's where the Neon Realm album came out of. And I'll link it at the end of this video, and I would love if you'd give it a listen. Like, that's for me. Like, that's a product of like, this is me staking my little flag in the ground and being like, this is me, this is my taste in music, and this is what I can do with it. But I would love if you gave it a listen, because like that was a big meaningful thing for me of like, okay, I'm going to like really put some more effort into songs instead of just making quick little beat tape worthy stuff and calling it a day. I will have lots of that as well. Like, it'll be a back and forth, an ebb and flow. I've been learning to embrace ebbs and flows as I try to navigate this whole content creation part-time thing. A couple of other disconnected notable things. I finally did a bit more traveling this year. I have no idea how I managed to actually fit it in with all the other stuff I was trying to do. But when we're talking music, I find traveling really inspirational. Like, I get energized by like being in a cool place, and I get like I feel more creative, and I will often bring a music gadget with me, maybe the Dirty Wave Mate, maybe the MC101, maybe the Circuit Tracks. And not only that, but I actually went traveling to see more live music. So that was tremendously energizing for me, and I'd love to do more of that in the future. Just to mention who I actually went and saw, I saw Stand Atlantic in San Diego. That was really fun. I have a part of me that like still is just the like 13-year-old kid loving kind of corny, petty, guitar-driven stuff like your alternative rock, your pop punk. That's what Stand Atlantic is. They do that sound really freaking well. Their album Fear is really good if you have a high like pettiness and cheesiness tolerance like I do. And then also saw Carpenter Brute, which was incredibly intense. His stuff is like electronic music made by a metalhead. It is the most intense concert I've ever been to. His music already is like just a pure shot of adrenaline, and seeing it live was really freaking fun. Plus, I did some traveling to hang out with friends and family, went to LA to see some family, and went to San Francisco to hang out with some of my college friends. That was lovely. I also had the best matcha latte I've ever had, and then since then embarked on a journey to recreate it at home, which I finally succeeded in. I'm actually going to do a video on that here on Beat Goblin. Once again, this is the place where the weird ideas go. That is neither here nor there. I just thought that was fun. And finally, there's a lot. I mentioned it was a lot. I hit 50,000 subscribers on the main channel. That's a goal I've been working towards for a very long time. Initially, it's not something I ever would have thought would have happened. I always thought I was going to just be kind of like a hobbyist doing like something that I thought was fun to a very small audience, and that's enough. That would have been fine. But the fact that 50,000 people said, yeah, I'd like to see more of that, is absolutely mind-blowing to me. It's really cool. My mom made me, behind me here, the wood play button. She laser cut that. Can you freaking believe that? That's so cool. And that's halfway to 100K. Like, one of my big overarching goals with the way I spend my time is I want to basically have the output and the results of a full-time YouTuber, but without being full-time. I'm very passionate about my full-time job. I like involuntarily notice infrastructure stuff around me and get like all excited about like a cool bit of drainage or transportation design. I can't help myself. And also like I want to continue to be able to afford to live in California. And so where was I going with that? Basically, hitting 100K is like my benchmark for like having made it. That is, of course, entirely arbitrary and made up. And in terms of YouTube success, subscribers don't matter nearly as much as they used to, but it's a nice benchmark for like the health of a channel. And so we're halfway there. I think we can get to 100K if I just keep doing what I've been doing and trying to deliver content that people want to see in a way that fits my strengths and like the way I approach both music and music gadgets. So if you've been along for the ride so far, thank you so much for subscribing to either of my channels. And I'll be back with new videos on both of them in a little bit. Peace.